This video contains content sponsored by John Wilson Blades and MK Blades. Opinions discussed in this video do not reflect the views of John Wilson or MK. Well, hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Jennifer Kirk.
And I'm Dave Leese, and we're thrilled to welcome back Phil Hersh. So Phil, you're not with the Chicago Tribune anymore, so tell people how they can read your content.
Well, two ways at nationals. I'm sorry, at worlds as well as nationals. I'm covering. I'm the Paulina Edmonds beat writer for the San Jose Mercury News again.
Okay.
And I'm also my blog, which is globetrottingbyphiliphersh.com. I will be writing things on there as well. So that's how you can see what I'm doing.
All right. Well, there's going to be much to cover in the next couple of weeks. But one thing we've been tracking is that Didier Gaige has announced his candidacy for the presidency of the ISU. He says that he hasn't killed anyone, so he feels he can perfectly be president.
A good thing. Yeah.
How legitimate do you believe his chances are at winning the presidency?
Well, actually, Dave, in sporting terms, he has killed somebody. What he did is effectively murder. He should be disqualified automatically. Matter of fact, he should have probably gotten a life suspension. So if he wins the thing, that would be an unbelievable indictment of how backward-looking the ISU is. It's just unbelievable. Are you going to take an embezzler and then hire him or her back as the bank president? That's effectively what you're saying. I mean, this guy corrupted results. That's the basic argument here. He was involved in corrupting results. Whether or not you believe the results were correct or incorrect in Salt Lake City, he was definitively involved in corrupting them. On top of that, his many, many years as president of the French Ice Sports Federation were an unmitigated financial disaster. I mean, if you go back and read some of L'Equipe's coverage well before Salt Lake City, that federation was always in a hole. Now, I understand that they have to support bobsled, luge, a number of sports that figure skating doesn't have to support in countries. But, I mean, he should be disqualified. It would be just it would be a mind-boggling result if he were the only qualified candidate to run, and if he were to win. But let me just back up one step and say I don't dislike Didier Gaige on the face of it. I've had very good interactions with him, but what he did is effectively murder.
One of the topics you write about a lot, Phil, is the popularity of skating here in the United States. And ticket sales for the World Championships in Boston, they're said to be doing well, strong. The arena's hopefully going to be sold out pretty well. And we saw at Nationals, the ladies' long program, there was a great crowd. But the other events didn't draw the same amount of people. So does it really come down to the ladies filling those stands? Talk about men today. Is it just all about the ladies?
Well, in terms of Boston, I think the men's is going to be full, and I think it'll be a tremendous. If it's not full, it's going to be very close to full, and you can thank our Japanese friends for that. They're great, passionate, wonderful fans. They support their skaters. They support everybody's skaters. I would be very surprised if there is not a very large Japanese crowd. Because you also have Miyahara and the women to give them another very, very strong medal or title contender.
And Mawasada too.
And Mawasada, of course. So. I think that this will do very well. I mean, as I tweeted yesterday about the wonderful dance result at Junior Worlds, and as I said, huge props to those ice dancers. But sadly enough, ice dancers don't sell tickets. I mean, the U.S. has had spectacular success in ice dance since 2005. I think I noted that there were 4 different couples have won senior ice dance world medals, and I think it was 6 different couples had won junior world ice dance medals, and bless them because they're doing unbelievably well. But you will get figure skating fans, I think, to watch ice dance, but you can't grab the person on the street who knows a Michelle Kwan or a Brian Boitano or an Evan Lysacek or a Scott Hamilton or even a Jeremy Abbott. Over those years, I don't think that they are grabbed by ice dance, and it's a marvel. It's even with the new scoring and the new judging, I still find it more entertainment than sport, without taking an iota of respect away from how difficult it is what those ice dancers do.
Well, a couple of years ago, we were always talking about the Korean fans as well, and David Wilson garnered some criticism when he stated that Yuna Kim's total absence from the sport has really hurt the sport immeasurably. Now, obviously, she got her country interested in skating. Do you think that will continue, and will the Olympics be enough to carry that interest until they get another skater?
Well, they've got, these, again, 12-year-olds. You never know what's going to happen with 12-year-olds, although look at some of those young Russians who, when they had no senior skaters, I think Elizaveta was one of them, Tomisheva was one, and other ones were one, and they have gone on to produce some results. But the Koreans had some sensational junior age skaters, actually novice age skaters, doing well in their national championships this year. I think that may increase some interest, but there won't be another Yuna. Let's just get that straight. I mean, the fact that she was the first, that she had this aura about her, there won't be another skater, I don't think, to attract that much individual attention. But I do think that Korea, if they could produce another world contender, medal contender, I think there would be some interest in Korea. But right now, the ISU is living off of Japan. Unfortunately, Canada is down. The United States is down in singles. Europe has been down for years. Sure, Carolina Costa coming back will regenerate a little bit of interest. But right now, the ISU definitively is relying on Japan. It would be nice if any of these other countries produced another skater. However, I fear that you will never see the interest in the United States unless by some miracle another Michelle Kwan-like skater or Scott Hamilton or Brian, one of those skaters with a huge off-ice aura. I mean, think of what Peggy did for the sport after she was finished. Think of what Dick Button did for the sport after he won the 2 Olympic titles. I mean, you need something like that.
Well, let's discuss some of the men that we'll be seeing in Boston, because Yuzuru Hanyu having a fantastic season, arguably one of the best seasons of his career. His season's best is 27 points higher than Javier Fernandez's. So is this really his title to lose, Phil?
I think so. I mean, I've actually just got back from Toronto. I was up there. Yuzu wasn't there, but I was up there talking to everybody else about Yuzu. And there's supposed to be a story on Ice Network tomorrow. I'm also doing some work for them. Johnny Weir said it really well at the Grand Prix final. He said Yuzu's competing against only himself. Mm-hmm. And I think that's correct. If you look at, I mean, I've got some scores up here. Patrick Chan skated really well in the free skate at the Grand Prix final, and Yuzu's technical scores were 24 points higher. Just think about that for a minute. In 3 elements, the base values were 41. Yuzu scored 49 points on the 6th, 7th, and 8th jumping. There were jumping elements of his free skate there. I mean, the scores that he put up, and not just the scores, the performances he gave first at NHK and then at the Grand Prix final, I only wish he had done that in the Olympics, because that people would talk about that for 50 years, 70 years, 80 years. It was one of the most, even watching it on a computer, I was blown away not only by the jumps, but by the in-betweens, by the Ina Bauer, by the Bielman, by everything else that he gives you in a program. He is able not to spend the whole program looking as if he's setting up quadruple jumps. Mm-hmm. So it's spectacular what he's done. Absolutely spectacular. But he is not a robot. I mean, at the Japanese championships, he had a little bit of a blip. He was in Japan until the end of February, then went back with Brian. So we'll see what happens. But if he skates the way he did at the Grand Prix final, it'll take something close to a divinity to come floating down on a cloud of angels to beat him.
Yeah.
Given how good he was in December, do you think he can top those performances? And if he doesn't, is it a bit of a letdown?
Well, that's always the problem when you're trying to top yourself. I mean, if you look at sports where there are finite, i.e. world records judged by time or distance, you get into that problem where if you don't, well, yeah, he won, but he didn't run a world record, or she won, but she only jumped, so-and-so. There is always that feeling, except that, only the real cognoscenti in the sport are aware of these numbers. So I think if you get some fan who just happens to turn on the television and sees Yuzu do what he did in Barcelona, I don't see how you wouldn't walk away saying, wow, even if the score is 4 points lower. I mean, or 3 points or 10 points lower. I mean, those were such wow moments. You sat there watching them and saying, this is really not happening, is it? I mean, when you consider we've seen many great performances over the years, but when you consider the technical difficulty that he is doing compared to 15 years ago, it's unreal.
Well, you talk about that technical difficulty, and we've seen him perform quad loops just in videos from shows that we've watched on YouTube. You have to wonder, perhaps, is he in his physical peak, at his physical peak at this point, and can he sustain that for 2 more years?
Well, he's still only 21 years old. And when you think about athletes, you know, in other sports, that's certainly, he's coming into the sweet spot of his career. Figure skaters haven't normally, men particularly haven't, well, Plushenko obviously is the exception to that rule, but a lot of them haven't stayed in as long to find out. I don't think that he necessarily needs to add anything. I mean, he's the kind of kid, Johnny Weir told me that he saw Yuzu practicing quad lutzes. So I don't think that Yuzu needs to add anything to win an Olympic gold medal, but he's the kind of kid who just wants to keep challenging himself. So would it be great if he tried that? Yes. Would it be great if he tried it and hurt himself badly doing it? As Johnny said to me on the phone about a week ago, he said, you wouldn't believe the falls Yuzu takes, and gets up and just plugs right along. So.
Well, one skater that he'll be definitely going against in Boston is Javier Fernandez. And Javier has the second highest season's best total, 302.77. That is 27 points below Hanyu. How do you think he will handle the pressure of being defending champion? Or does that not even be a question given how well Yuzu has done this season?
You know, I talked to Javi about that. He was in Toronto while I was there. We spent a long time talking. And one of the things he's doing is upping the ante a little bit. His intention is to put a second quad in the short program, which he did at Spanish Nationals, if I'm not incorrect, and to put a second triple axel into the free skate. So that could get him a little bit closer. Basically he said to me, the way Yuzu skated in Barcelona, it would be hard for anybody to beat him. But Javier wants to get as close as he possibly can, and has realized that right now if you don't want to count on somebody else's mistakes, the only way for him to get closer is to try to up the ante a little bit. They're similar and yet different skaters. I mean, Yuzu, in terms of performances, Javier is a much more showy kind of skater. I mean, the guys and dolls thing, and what was it last year it was
Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, exactly. So both, interestingly enough, though, Yuzu gets higher component scores. Some people still think of Javier as a jumper a little bit. He's one. There'll be some pressure on him because he's the defending champion. Always feels some pressure. But Javi said to me that I want to defend and Yuzu doesn't want to lose again. So it'll be an interesting dynamic going on.
Well, also in the mix, we have to talk about Patrick Chan, because this is really the first time, I would say, his comeback this season, but that all eyes aren't on him to win another world title. That expectation, it's basically just he's hoping to make the podium, I would say, at this point. And really his downfall this season has been his short program. Finally doing a clean short program at Canadian National Championships, but that score was only the 11th best short program that we've seen of all the skaters thus far this season, and obviously event to event, it's hard to compare. But what do you think it will take for him to be on the podium in Nationals?
I think if Patrick Chan skates 2 clean programs, he should make it there. It's really interesting. You look at individual numbers, and some of them don't mean things, and some of them do. I looked at the scores of Jin Boyang and Patrick at the 4 continents, and actually Jin Boyang got higher elements in the free skate than Patrick did, which is hard to wrap your mind around, because Jin obviously does all those quadruple jumps, but you don't necessarily think of a lot of his other elements. Patrick, of course, slaughters him on the component scores, and whether who's getting Chanflation now, whether it's Hanflation or Hanyuflation or Chanflation, or whether it doesn't exist anymore, Patrick can't make mistakes. In the past, Patrick could make mistakes, as happened in 2013 in London, when Denis 10 obviously should have won that world championship, and they gave Patrick the benefit of the doubt. Patrick doesn't have that benefit of the doubt anymore. One of the things, he skated an absolutely horrible short program at the Grand Prix final. I think he had 70 points, if I recall, which is a good women's score. Yet he came back with a very strong free skate, and he had in 4 continents he also had a very strong free skate. What's interesting to me is that when I was talking about Jin's scores and Patrick's scores, Patrick did a quad toe, triple toe, a quad toe, and 2 triple axels and still had lower technical scores than Jin by about 4 points. That's really kind of interesting to me.
Mm.
Yeah, if you do think that he is clean, do you think his best hope is the silver at these World Championships? Where do you think Patrick fits in the mix?
Based on what we've seen this year, if all 3 skate clean, it's Hanyu, Fernandez, and Chan. And the X Factor, Mr. 10, God knows what's going to happen to him. I mean, he fell 3 times in Luxembourg about a week ago. So, I mean, he's always the mystery man who comes out of nowhere and all of a sudden puts together 1 performance a year. I don't think that's going to happen this time.
Do you think, though, say he does put it together, Dennis says, do you think the judges will give him the PCS that we've seen in the past? Because it's hard to rely on him when we don't know, is he training? Is he going to be at this event? He's so mysterious. At this point in his career, do you think it's too late for the judges? If he comes to Boston and skates 2 clean programs, will they give him that PCS?
Well, given both the Olympics and the recent Worlds, I think they will. I mean, the very fact that Denis 10, who was basically an outsider, got so close to beating Patrick in Canada in 2013, the judges like him, and they deserve to like him. I still think, when I go back and watch those 2 programs, the 2 programs to the artist, I think that was one of the most remarkably interesting choreographic explorations that anybody has ever done. I just loved it. I loved it there. I love it even more 3 years later. So the judges have always seemed to like him. But he is the international man of mystery. He shows, he's been all over the place all season. I think he wisely skipped out of 4 continents. But then, as I say, he goes to Luxembourg in some nothing burger competition and nearly kills himself in the short program with a fall on his hip, and then had 2 more falls in the free skate.
It's funny. They actually never know at his training rink whether or not where he is going to be, what country he's going to be when he's coming back. And in Luxembourg, we saw that he went for a quad salchow and it didn't even get off of the ice. Now, Frank is usually a more conservative coach. Do you think Denis needs to just go for broke at these World Championships after the season he's had?
It depends. That would probably be a good philosophy. He right now has nothing to lose. It makes no difference to him whether he finishes 4th or 24th, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? If he can do it. I mean, he's always got every skater, Jennifer, how your body hurts at the end of a season. I mean, every skater always has niggling injuries, but he seems to have more than, back and foot and this and that and whatever. If he comes out of nowhere and wins a medal this time, boy, somebody needs to follow his training methods.
Just very impressive. I know he posted recently on Instagram, I think a couple days ago, a photograph, and we were trying to figure out, is there a palm tree in the background? Is he back to training? And he had this long message about how not only is it physical injuries that have been holding him back, but obviously mental kind of stuff that's going on as well. And I think with him, the stars have to align. They have to come together. But another man we need to discuss who could potentially be on the podium is Shoma Uno. We saw him at Skate America, Phil, and he was so great there in the long program. Do you think he could be on that podium? Will he need others to make mistakes?
I wonder whether he's still 17. Has he turned 18 yet?
I don't think
I
so.
wonder whether his first senior season he may be worn down now. Mm-hmm. You saw a little bit of that at 4 continents. It's hard to. Yes, he's had a month off or almost 6 weeks, I guess, it'll be almost 6 weeks since 4 continents. But you just wonder with a young skater like that whether he would be worn down. Again, he is a skater. Can he make the podium? In the hypothetical, everybody's skating clean. No. But other people make mistakes. He's a great skater to watch. He's got the quads. He's a beautiful skater. Would I be surprised to see him on the podium? No, I wouldn't. But he can't get there on his own right now. I don't think. And who knows? I mean, he may yet be worn down. I mean, we've seen that with some of the young Russian girls who are even younger. We've seen them get worn down at the end of a season, with the exception of Tuktamysheva's unbelievable season last year when she won.
But pause. Meldonium. She did say that she had been.
Well, yeah. Again, we don't. Yeah, everybody with meldonium. Who knows?
Yeah. Are you suspicious of the results going forward if no one's taking meldonium? Do you think it could change the course of the season, Phil?
Well, if no one, we won't. I mean, we don't know that whether Evgenia or Radionova or Pogo or any of those were taking meldonium. At least they haven't tested positive for it yet. That'll be, it's a very interesting thing. I mean, we don't really know. There's not been enough literature out there as to what the long-term benefits of meldonium are. I mean, it's talked about, increasing lung capacity and blood flow and stuff like that, which sounds almost EPO-like. But yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point you raised about. I didn't even think about that real quickly about Tuktamisheva.
She's come out and said that she did take it prior to January 1st.
And she did do 15 competitions last year.
Wasn't it 73 competitions last year?
And then this season we saw the come down that she was not the same skater.
Except that maybe all of. If you're reading what's come out from Russia, most of those people are claiming they weren't informed or they didn't know, or most of them may have kept taking it at least through the end of the year because then it wasn't going to be banned until January. So it's all speculation. But for her to go out and get those, whether or not you were on something, to be able to skate that consistency. Was it 15 competitions, Dave, and she finished second twice? Was that it?
Yeah, it was something 13 or 15 competitions last year.
She would find the most obscure competition. Every weekend it was something, someplace. It is very, very impressive.
Yeah.
But we need to talk about the U.S. men, because the World Championships here in Boston. Max Aaron, Nathan Chen, unfortunately having to withdraw from this event. Can Max place that special 6th position? Because we need to get the 6 and 7 in order to get 3 spots. Could he be top 6 here in Boston?
First of all, very unfortunate for Nathan Chen. He wasn't going to, get near the podium in this time, but I just thought that would have been great to get him out there against those skaters just to see where he stands against them. I mean, how different really is he from Boyang Jin, who's a Grand Prix finalist, right? From Jin Boyang, who's a Grand Prix finalist. They're both 6 quadruple jumps. I think Nathan actually, has got a little more attractiveness already in his skating than Jin does. So it's very unfortunate looking forward that Nathan could not be there this time. I don't think the U.S. is going to hold the 3 spots. I just don't see that happening. And if you'll permit me here, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a rant. And this is, I don't want to denigrate Adam Rippon because I like Adam Rippon and he's a very attractive skater. But I am so tired of hearing he's such a gorgeous skater. What do we care if he can't do quadruple jumps? Yuzu is a gorgeous skater. He does quadruple jumps. Patrick is a gorgeous skater. He does quadruple jumps. Fernandez is a gorgeous skater. He does quadruple jumps. Stefan Lambiel was a gorgeous skater, did quadruple jumps. Jeremy Abbott at his best, gorgeous skater, did quadruple jumps. I was looking this up before this conversation started. It has not been since 2010 that a man won the World Championships without a clean quadruple jump. And in 4 of the last 5 seasons, all 3 medalists did at least 1 clean quadruple jump, some of them twice. So, I mean, to me, Adam either lands that quadruple jump or he goes home. And the fact that he's still going to do a quad Lutz, I'm trying to figure out why that is. He, way back in the dark ages, he did land quad toes. One would have to think that would be easier than a quad Lutz. Please tell me, Jenny, that it would be easier than a quad
much
Lutz.
Easier, honey. I did not like the Lutz.
I just don't get it. I'm simply never going to buy that excuse. I mean, you can't say, yeah, he's a gorgeous skater. He's a gorgeous skater who can't do a quadruple jump. As far as I'm concerned, he's automatically out of the top 6 in my book. Because they're going to, if you looked at the World Juniors, the Israeli kid who won did 3, right?
Yeah, right.
I was looking down below that. There weren't that many up in the top. There was, I think, the 5th place guy did 1. But U.S. skating is not moving forward. Having 2 champions in a row without a quadruple jump is really a negative thing. And Max obviously can do quadruple jumps, but I don't think he's ever going to get the PCS scores. And to me, Adam is a poor man's Jeremy Abbott. When you look at Jeremy, who went to 2 Olympic Games and had disasters, but Jeremy's, I'm looking up at my corner here, Jeremy's world finishes were 11, 11, 5, 8, and 5. And the 2 5s were in watered-down Olympic year fields. Adam so far is 6th from 2010, 6, 13, and 8. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, sometime one of these guys has to step up and make a podium or get close to a podium. Jason Brown came close thanks to other people's mistakes last year. I don't think Jason would have been in the running this year at all. So that's my rant. I mean, this whole apologizing for Adam's lack of a quadruple jump just has to stop. I mean, U.S. figure skating has to start training these kids to get these jumps down at the age that Nathan I'm going to pronounce Daniel's name wrong. Samoan? How is it pronounced?
Samoan, like the cookie, the Girl Scout cookie, Samoa cookie.
Oh, the dog. So yeah, I mean, and Vincent Zhao's obviously trying quadruple jumps. The next generation seems to be totally invested in this. I'm afraid we're going to have to get through this generation before that next generation comes forward.
Well, there's been so much talk this season about Max's transition. He's becoming the Black Swan. Do you see any changes in his second mark?
I saw he skated really well at Skate America. You were there, and that was a very, I mean, both, I thought that he deserved better component scores than he got. Unfortunately, when you get pigeonholed, it's awfully hard to break out of that pigeonhole. I mean, most often you don't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, but people do get better in certain areas of their skating. And once you get pigeonholed early, I'm beginning to see that with Paulina Edmonds. I'm trying to figure out why it is that international judges don't like her. Or isn't that they don't like her, but they don't really like her. Yeah. So I think Max has made improvement. I didn't find his skating at Nationals. I thought actually he skated better at Skate America. That was definitely a different Max Aaron, a Max Aaron that you really wanted to watch do other things than the jumps.
And the one thing I think about Max is that if this was a different field, he's competing, I think, against some of the best, just in terms of pure skaters, Chan, Hanyu. I mean, I think they're two legends, technically and artistically, that he's going against. Some of the competitors he has are quite formidable. But with Nathan Chen injured, do you think Max is potentially the U.S.'s best hope looking 2 years ahead to the Olympics?
Wow. That's, clearly, in my mind, Adam is not in that mix. In terms, when you say best hope, do you mean top 5?
Top 5, top 8. I mean, you have to think Nathan or Max, looking forward, who does the U.S. really have to kind of push for the Olympics?
Well, I think you push Nathan, because I think Nathan's got a much bigger upside. I really liked Nathan's free skate at Nationals. I thought there was a lot more to that than just the 4 quadruple jumps. And it's still very young. Don't forget, he's 16 years old. And with guys, that's obviously the best, Hanyu now, you see it occasionally. How old was Kulik when he won? 18 or 19, maybe. And you've seen it with Yuzu being a precocious skater ahead of his time. But the Yuzu we were seeing now at 21 is a lot more attractive skater than the Yuzu at the Olympics, who had a great short program and a lousy long program. I think you have to look to Nathan. I think you may want to look toward Vincent Zhao as the future. I mean, it's hard to tell with junior kids, but to me, I think that's where the future is. I don't think. I'm going to probably make a lot of enemies saying this, but I think Jason Brown has already skated the skate of his career. Mm-hmm. I don't see how at his age, Jason still is landing only half his triple axels. He has never landed a quadruple jump in a competition. I don't see how at his age he's going to master the quadruple jumps necessary to move up to a podium finish. That performance in Boston, I believe, may go down as the skate of his career.
Well, what Jason has is obviously that performance quality, that second mark. And someone like Boyang Jin has the 4 quads, the technical prowess that we could only wish for here in the United States. Do you think he could medal just based solely on his technical score? And if so, is it fair that it's so there's just such a discrepancy between how well he jumps and how well he does everything else?
I don't think he can medal. In a different field, he could medal based on just the technical score. But you've got, those 3 top skaters plus a healthy Denis 10 they all can do quads, and they're all gorgeous to watch. So, I mean, that's a hard hill to climb for Jin Boyang. I don't think it still should be a blend of things. Mm-hmm. But when you've got people who are capable of doing the quadruple jumping that those top 3 guys are, and the artistry that they can add to it, I mean, there's no way you can beat that with strictly jumps. Nor is there any way you can beat that with strictly artistry.
Well, what do you make of Kovtun this season? We haven't seen too much of him. He does have the 8th best, season's best in the short program. Free skate, he's only 15th and 19th overall. There's such a focus on the Russian ladies and pair teams. But do you think they've fallen off in the men's event after Plushenko and Yagudin?
Yeah, I mean, clearly he's inconsistent as heck. I mean, if you look at the Europeans, Bachenko came into that Europeans having been 12th and 10th, I believe, in his 2 Grand Prix this year, right? And Bachenko got second. I mean, European skating, men's and women's right now, is extremely weak when you throw the Russians out of the women's picture. I mean, you can't throw them out, you know what I'm saying, other than the Russians. So, I mean, I think Kovtun has got the capability, but Kovtun so far has never shown the consistency to come through. And I think he's a top 5 skater if he skates twice clean. But, he hasn't even come close to that.
Well, speaking of top 5 skaters, last season Nam Nguyen from Canada placing 5th. This season, though, has been horrific for him. His season's best, I think it's only 22nd overall, the score that he acquired there. Is this really a do-or-die competition? Because he wasn't slated to compete here, placing 4th at Nationals. He will be replacing Liam Furris. Does he need to really step it up? And what would be a good placement for him in Boston?
I spent a long time talking to him when I was in Toronto. He was joking. He doesn't want to even measure himself anymore from day to day because he thinks he might have grown another 2 inches. This has been his big body change year. Yeah. And he is really struggling with that. I think I'm almost surprised. I mean, I guess it can't hurt to send him to Worlds. I mean, he was 4th last year, correct?
5th.
Fifth. I'm sorry. Yeah. 4th in the free skate, I believe. I don't think it'll hurt sending him to Worlds, but I thought it was sort of like this year was going to be written off. That all the growth changes, all the things that happened. So again, I mean, can it hurt him or help him? I think if he skates the way he skated the rest of the year, he'll figure, well, I got to go back to square one next year, and now that I've got my growth over with. And if he skates, well enough to get into the top 8, I think it'll be an achievement for him. By the way, speaking of great young kids, there's the Canadian novice champion who also trains with Brian is a kid named Steven Gogolev. I'm sure you're maybe familiar with that name. And I watched him skate a little bit, and they pulled out an iPhone and showed me the quad salchow he did, and it was unbelievable. He's 11 years old.
Bless. Respect. Hopefully his body will be able to last over the next decade or so. Well, as we wrap things up, you guys, I want to hear your predictions for the event, and I also want to hear your hashtag MK moment of the season. Phil, let's start with you.
Prediction for the event, just the men, right?
Just the men, top 3.
I'm gonna go Hanyu, Chen, Fernandez.
Okay, and you're.
You guys do the predictions, and then I'll come back to think of my.
Think of your moment, Dave.
My MK moment of the season. I pretty much know what it is, but go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to agree with Phil. I think it's going to be Hanyu first. I think Chan is going to pull something off and be second, and I think that Javier will be third. Also looking at Boyang Jin and Shoma Uno, I don't think it will be Denis Ten's year this year. 2 MK moments. One MK moment I have to say is the fact that Daniel Samoan did represent the U.S. at sectional and regional competitions, and that somehow he got away. I think that is a real story.
Back. Yeah, the one that got away.
And obviously Hanyu's performances this season at the Grand Prix final. How about you, Jenny?
So I'm going to mix it up just a bit. I'm going to go Hanyu, Javier, and then Chan. I think Chan will do well, but with 2 triple axels and 2 quads, I just don't think his technical score in the free skate will be enough for him to overtake the other 2, whom I expect to skate very well. My hashtag MK moment is going to be Hanyu's performance at the Grand Prix final. Just the face when he finished, he was so, and also at NHK Trophy, he expected it, and I love that. He's so confident this season. Phil, do you have a moment?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a 2-part moment. I'm gonna call my MK moment is gonna be called back to back to back to back. To have done that 4 times in a row, the 2 short programs, the 2 long programs. And then as part of a cute MK moment in that, it was when even before Javi saw the scores go up at the Grand Prix final, he slid off the bench, got on his knees and salamed to and I thought that kind of summed up the season, the respect that Yuzu has generated from his fellow competitors and the deserved respect. We saw, once in a lifetime performances, what seemed like once-in-a-lifetime performances. Hopefully for Yuzu and for the sport, they won't be once-in-a-lifetime performances.
What a great way to end, and we can't wait to see you next week in Boston. Phil, thank you so much for coming on the skating lesson.
Well, thank you very much.